The Rangers won the series against the Nationals, but lost Nathan Eovaldi to the game with a groin injury. How long is he going to be out, and what kind of implications does it have on Jack Leiter and how soon he's going to come back up? We'll talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's episode talking about Nathan Eovaldi, Evan Carter graduating from prospect status, and Max Scherzer not being as on time with his rehab as we expected a week ago, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brake kits to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Now, the Rangers shut out the Nationals in I believe it was the second time of this series. The Rangers just dominated the Nationals offense with pitching in this series. They got a great start out of Nathan Eovaldi until not the second shutout. There were 3 games this series. The Nationals scored 1 run in 2 of them and 0 in this most recent one. The Rangers got a very good start from Nathan Eovaldi that ended in a scary moment for Rangers fans, with Nathan Eovaldi grimacing barely after 1 pitch, and immediately the training staff came out to him. He went 5 1/3 innings, allowed just 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. But 1 pitch was all it took for the Rangers training staff to know that something was up with Nate Eovaldi. I didn't know exactly what it was watching him, and that's one of the scarier moments for me personally, especially with Nate Eovaldi's injury history, which is pretty extensive, and even recent injury history, which he was on the IL for nearly 2 months last year. When he came back, he didn't have his fastball velocity at the end of the season, got absolutely rocked, rehabbing at the big league level for the last month of the season, only to find his form right when the playoffs started, because that is classic Nate Eovaldi. But he left this game with a right groin strain. So we don't know exactly the extent of this injury. He is going to have an MRI after they fly to Kansas City, and we will find out a little bit more probably at Friday night's pregame media availability. But it seems pretty safe to assume that Nate Eovaldi is going to go on the IL. Now, the groin strain is not as bad of an injury as I was initially fearing. When I went and looked back at his Baseball Savant page for this game, and his fastball velocity was down 0.7 miles an hour from his yearly average. He was averaging 95.3 miles an hour on his fastball, and in this game it was down to 94.6 miles an hour. The cutter was down 1 mile an hour. The slider, he only threw it 4 times, but it was down 1.8 miles an hour. Just across the board, the velocity was down, and usually that indicates that something is off. And with Eovaldi's arm injury history, elbow injury, the Tommy Johns that he's had, the shoulder, all the different issues that Eovaldi has had, with any pitcher, shoulder is the scariest injury. Elbow / forearm / wrist, which is what it started with DeGrom last year, that morphed into forearm, which morphed into UCL repair surgery. Thankfully, it's a lower body injury. It's not that. It's not there's no Tommy John, there's no UCL anything, there is no elbow, shoulder, anything above the waist that is having issues. It is just the right groin. And usually that would take about 2 to 3 weeks to heal, depending on the severity of the groin strain. Hopefully it's not going to be a multi-month thing. That would be really worrying. Heck, even missing 1 start for Eovaldi with the state of this rotation right now, and with the delay in Max Scherzer's rehab, and with Cody Bradford's injury being worse than it is, and just the the everything. It's just, it's never great timing, but especially now. I was talking about it in a lot of my preseason, predictions for this team, and a lot of it revolved around the Rangers can't have starting pitchers get hurt, let alone multiple, and definitely not Eovaldi. But there we are. Cody Bradford, who was vital to this rotation, got hurt. It's going to be probably another 3.5 to 4 weeks before Bradford gets back. We'll see when Scherzer gets back. Initially, we were thinking could be, sometime within that Oakland series, that maybe the doubleheader, that's when Scherzer could be activated off the IL. That's absolutely not happening now. He's going to have a rehab start. So at the earliest, it's not this weekend. So rehab places, the AA and AAA, they have Mondays off. So it's going to be Tuesday at the earliest. So a week after his second rehab start was supposed to be happening, which, again, not begrudging Max Scherzer, not begrudging the Rangers for being cautious with a 39-year-old who's pitched about 1 billion innings. It's the right move. It's the smart move to do, but it puts this team in a bit of a predicament. You just really hope that Eovaldi's groin strain is just very, very mild. Maybe if it's literally the best case scenario, he can pitch on Tuesday, which is when his next scheduled start is. But it seems like that's not going to happen. And if that doesn't happen, then they probably place him on the IL and call up Jack Leiter, I think is going to be the opposite at this point. It seemed like Leiter was already going to come up during this series in Oakland. It's kind of, confusing, the Rangers having this weird midweek series where, they have a scheduled doubleheader, but they still get to have that day off. So it's a span of 13 games in 13 days, but there is a day off. And that includes a 10-game road trip, which starts tonight at Kansas City for 3 games, then to Oakland for 4 games in 3 days, then an off day, then 3 in Colorado. And you're just really hoping to take advantage of that series against Oakland, which is no longer a pushover series. The Oakland A's are in 3rd place in the AL West, and they're a few games ahead of the Astros, and they won a series against the Yankees, who have been one of the better teams in baseball. So this has turned into a very tough road trip, which at the beginning of the year did not look like a tough road trip at all. The Royals have been good this year. Their pitching staff has been fantastic. The Rangers are going to need their offense to start heating up in a hurry and start bailing them out. And then you got 3 games in Colorado, which the Rockies are just about as bad as we expected, maybe even a little worse. But this is just... it's not great timing for the Rangers to have any kind of injury, especially not to their ace, who was pitching so incredibly well. And the Rangers did get the win. Credit to them, and credit to the bullpen for continuing to be fantastic this season, especially the high leverage guys. You only had to use 3 guys, and actually only 2 leverage guys, because the Rangers were able to pour on 3 more runs in the bottom of the 8th, so they didn't have to use Kirby Yates. And it's making the injury here, it's making me think back on the rest of this series and the importance of John Gray going 8 innings, the importance of Andrew Heaney going 7 innings. We're going to look back at these starts, and depending on the severity of this Eovaldi injury, we're going to look at how much this bullpen is about to be used in this road trip. It's probably going to be a lot. And thankfully, it hasn't had to be taxed too heavily lately, which is nice, having that off day and then having, to pitch 3 innings out of your bullpen for the first 2 games of this series. It's huge. It's absolutely huge for this bullpen. And those performances by Gray and by Heaney were massive, especially if they're indicators of things that we can expect in the future. I'm not entirely sure we can expect John Gray to go 8 innings of 1-run ball in his next start, or Andrew Heaney to go 7 innings of 1-run ball in his next start, which will probably be on Monday. That seems like a bit of a Herculean ask, especially since Heaney has not been one to go 7+ innings in very many of his starts. I talked a lot about it on yesterday's show, but those outings are going to look huge. And Max Scherzer not pitching this weekend with the thumb issue that is progressing. It is getting better. It's not getting worse, which is a good sign for the Rangers. But him not being able to return in early May, which is just such a bonkers thing to say at this point in the season, given where he was when he was expected to return. And the importance of the Cody Bradford injury not being as short an IL trip as we thought. It's let this rotation into a precarious spot. And the answer might just be Jack Leiter. Coming up, we'll talk about this offense starting to figure some things out, maybe a league-wide offensive trend that is going in the wrong direction, and what we can expect from Jack Leiter, if he might just be in this rotation to stay for a hot minute. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leveled up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Now, the Rangers were able to drop 6 runs on the Nationals in this one after getting shut out the day before. And finally, the runners in scoring position luck turned around the Rangers' way. The Rangers went 5 for 14 with runners in scoring position in this one after just an abysmal, I believe it was 1 for 9 the other day, with two different situations where the Rangers had the bases loaded and no outs and they got shut out for the game. That did not happen in this one. Credit to the Rangers for jumping on the Nationals early, dropping a 3 spot in the bottom of the second inning, including a big hit by Evan Carter against a lefty. Evan Carter, the 21-year-old. Evan Carter, the top prospect. Evan Carter, the no longer top prospect. Why might I say that? Well, because he is no longer considered a prospect. He has the requisite amount of plate appearances, 188 now in 2 years of service time, 52 regular season games in the big leagues. No longer can we call Evan Carter a prospect. He is a rookie and a big leaguer and a World Series champ who got a big hit off a lefty. And it was not a cheapie either. One of the hardest hit balls of the game was Evan Carter's 106.3 mile an hour line drive single deflected off the glove of the first baseman, drove in a run. Way to go, Evan Carter, hitting off a lefty. I talked about it earlier this week that Evan Carter had two different games in a 3-game span where there was an off day in between where Evan Carter did not get the start against a left-handed starting pitcher. Now, that's by no means out of the ordinary, but with this kid, he has not hit lefties well, obviously, in his career. He is a lefty, but he hasn't had that many at-bats. But I was starting to get worried because Evan Carter isn't hitting lefties well yet, but he doesn't have a lot of chances against these lefties, and he needs to get these chances to avoid becoming a platoon player. In his big league career, he has got a 991 OPS against right-handed pitching in 159 plate appearances. That's all regular season numbers. He's only got 29 plate appearances against lefties in his big league career. He is now hitting .077 with his second hit, his first RBI off a lefty, and he just needs to get those chances, needs to get those reps, because you can't send him to the minors to go face off against quality lefties and figure it out, because there aren't enough quality lefties in the minor leagues to get him the requisite amount of reps. And also, he's one of your better players, so sending him to the minor leagues is just not really an option the Rangers can afford. He's actually, according to Baseball Reference War, the Rangers' 5th most valuable player this season, behind Marcus Semien at 1.9 B-WAR. Of course, the day after I talked about Josh Smith jumping over Marcus Semien as the Rangers' B-WAR leader, Marcus Semien puts up .3 WAR in a single game and surpasses Josh Smith. Smith is still at 1.7, and Eovaldi at 3, and Kirby Yates as the number 4 most valuable player, according to Baseball Reference for the Rangers this season. And Evan Carter slotting in there at number 5. But this offense hasn't been the most consistent with hitting long balls. It has been a real struggle for Corey Seager, who was not fully healthy heading into this season. coming off of that surgery on the sports hernia, not a herniated disc. That was a different surgery that a Ranger had this offseason. But Seager said he feels physically right. He's starting to hit baseballs hard. He is just not getting enough hits, is what he's saying. He said, physically, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just not getting enough hits. And he has been in a rough way. It has been a rough start for Seager. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's only hitting .219 with an on-base of .305 and slugging just .289 and OPS below 600. But it's not just Seager that's been struggling offensively. It has been a league-wide trend of offense being down. This was in a big story by Jeff Passan about early season trends a month into the year. And this is a paragraph about the offense trending down, not just with Corey Seager, but league-wide specifically. Batting average, this is a quote from the story. Batting average this March and April was back at .240, 7 points down from last year. The league-wide on-base percentage has suffered a similar dip to .314. Slugging is down 20 points to .385. Isolated power, home run rate, runs per game, down, 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 end quote. All of those numbers, the home runs, it's not just the Rangers that aren't hitting home runs. It's not just the Rangers that aren't getting on base. Pitchers are better than ever, and I feel like there's just got to be something different with these baseballs that just, they aren't carrying. There aren't nearly as many home runs as there are expected home runs, and I don't just think that's because the pitchers are getting better. Although the pitchers are getting better. Pitchers are very, very good. But hitters are very good too. There have been quite a few different balls, especially early on with Wyatt Langford, that I thought were going to be home runs. There's been different balls with Marcus Semien that I thought were going to be home runs. Even some with Jonah Heim. I think we'll start to see some more home runs from Nathan Eovaldi, who has been a nice boost to this offense, hitting over 300 on base of .422, slugging nearly .450 with a couple of doubles. Also, Josh Smith, huge offensive bright spot for this team. Probably the Rangers' second best hitter. In terms of OPS, he surpassed Adolis Garcia as the Rangers' OPS leader this year. That's if you're not counting Justin Foskew's 1,000 OPS in 2 whole plate appearances, or Josh Young's 1415 OPS in his 19 plate appearances. Yeah, Josh Young was really doing that well to start this year. But Josh Smith's offense has been huge for this Rangers team. Adolis Garcia's offense has been huge, but the Rangers need a little bit more offensive juice from their superstars. Semien has been consistent as all heck. He is starting to get a few more extra base hits as of late. The defense has been honestly spectacular from Semien. But with the injury to Nate Eovaldi, this offense is going to have to start carrying this team. It's going to have to start stepping up. Hopefully the baseballs will start to fly a little bit more out of here as the temperatures rise around Major League Baseball stadiums. Usually that tends to be the case. April offense is almost always down because a lot of places are very, very cold, and not really so much with the Rangers ballpark, but other ballparks around Major League Baseball up in the north. It's still cold in April, which is not something that us Southerners really have much recollection of, but this offense is going to need to start heating up. They're going to need to start getting more consistent production from Seager. I feel like he is just on the verge of the hot streak. I'm still not worried about Seager. Someone asked me, when should we start worrying about Corey Seager? I said in about a month, maybe 2-3 weeks. If we're at, mid to late May and Seager has only like one more home run, if he's sitting at like 2 or 3 home runs come May 20th or so, and he's still hitting 219-ish, then I might start to be a little worried. But again, he's just such an incredibly talented offensive player. He hasn't ever had a down season. I mean, his one real down season was his first year with the Rangers, and he hit 33 home runs that year. That's a down season for Corey Seager. But this team is just too talented offensively not to figure it out. Hopefully we can start to see a breakout from Wyatt Langford soon. A little bit of a hot streak from Marcus Semien would be nice. Jonah Heim putting together some good at-bats in this one, and the addition of Nathaniel Lowe back into this lineup, and hopefully the re-addition of Josh Young into this lineup, which again, it's not going to be for another month, but whoever is in this lineup, whoever is playing every day or any day, the Rangers need to get some offense out of them because this starting rotation has got some questions, but it might have an answer in Jack Leiter. Come up and talk about what his role might be if Nate Eovaldi has to miss some extended time, or even if he doesn't. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs, take your pick of more or less, then add them to your PrizePicks entry today. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action on more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For baseball games, if you have a player who registers 2 plate appearances or less, PrizePicks will have your back and not count that stat as a loss. PrizePicks is so simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types, that's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko game. There's always something new, timed events that can help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. The Nate Eovaldi injury puts the Rangers in such a precarious place that they did not want to be. Whether he misses even one start, the Rangers are already at the place where at the beginning of the year, they did not want to be. And that place is needing Jack Leiter. Not just wanting Jack Leiter to hopefully come up at some point this season, depending on when there was an availability in the rotation, whether there was, some kind of, it would be nice for Jack Leiter to slide in. That was the idea. Not to force Jack Leiter to be ready before he's ready. Although I think at this point he might just be ready to slot in every 5th game if the Rangers really, really need him to. But you got to look at where this Rangers rotation is and how much they have on the IL right now. The Rangers in their system at this point have, I would say, 13 guys that I'd feel comfortable starting at least one game, or not horrible about. They got 10 guys that I feel pretty good about starting one game. And then they got 3 I'd feel okay about. Those first 10, you have Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Nate Eovaldi, Tyler Mahle, John Gray. Then you got Cody Bradford, Andrew Heaney, Michael Lorenzen, Dane Dunning, and then you have Jack Leiter at 10 if everyone's fully healthy. That's not to slight Jack Leiter. That's more just to say I feel very comfortable with those first 9 guys. But you've got 2 of those guys that are going to be out until July or August. You have Scherzer, who you don't know when he's going to come back. You have Bradford, who you're not entirely sure when he's going to come back. And you have Nate Eovaldi, who may or may not make his next start on Tuesday, probably leaning towards not. So that's 5 guys that are hurt. Maybe 5 that will be on the IL once we get to Tuesday, or after we get some more information, once we see the MRI on Nate Eovaldi. But that just kind of shows you how precarious a spot this team is in. But Jack Leiter had his most recent start on Thursday against the Albuquerque Isotopes in Albuquerque, a notoriously very, very hitter-friendly park, but he did fairly well, only giving up just 3 hits in 5 innings of work. He struck out 4, he did walk a couple, and allowed a couple of runs, both on solo home runs. Now, Albuquerque is probably the most hitter-friendly park of maybe any in minor league baseball. It might even be more hitter friendly than Coors, but those home runs that Leiter gave up, it wasn't just because of the thin air. They were both over 100 miles an hour off the bat. They were some legitimate solo shots, but overall, a solid performance from him. 78 pitches in that one. Only 46 of them were strikes, but 14 of those 46 strikes were swinging strikes. So he is still getting those swings and misses. If you want to look at his overall numbers in Round Rock this year in 5 games, 4 of those were starts. One of those was a piggyback start. He's got a 2.84 ERA in 25 and a third innings. So averaging over 5 innings per start. He's got 8 walks, which is 2.8 walks per 9, 5.3 hits per 9, and 13.1 strikeouts per 9. And the numbers are good. They look good. But the mentality is even better. There was a very nice feature written by Sean McFarland in the Dallas Morning News, talking extensively with Jack Leiter about the changes that he's made both mechanically and mentally to get himself ready to be a big league starter, to learn from his 2 seasons of struggles early on in his professional career. And it seems like he's got himself in the very right headspace, even after being sent down literally a day after his major league debut. Because he talked about how you worked so hard for this day, and he corrected himself to say, no, I've worked so hard for this day and for all the days to come. Well, it seems like the days to come might be coming very quickly for Jack Leiter, because he will be on schedule to make a start on Tuesday if the Rangers need him. If Eovaldi has to miss time or has to skip that start, he could be ready by Tuesday. It seems more likely that he will end up throwing in part of the doubleheader on Thursday against the A's. And if it's not him, if it is him that comes up and starts on Tuesday, and then the Rangers will probably have to call somebody up for that doubleheader. And the only guy on the 40-man roster the Rangers have that is a starting pitcher and would be starting for the Rangers is Owen White, who has not had a season quite as good as Jack Leiter's. It has been a bit of a struggle, a bit of a backslide for White, which is exactly what the Rangers were not hoping for. They're hoping he could find some of his velocity. They were hoping he could find some kind of consistency and just give a little bit more hope for his development this year. That really has not been the case. It has been a struggle for him as of late, but there is encouraging news that his most recent start was his best start of the year. Owen White went 6 innings on May 1st, allowed just 2 runs, only 1 walk to 5 strikeouts. That one of those runs came on the home run, and he got a few more swinging strikes than he had before. It tied for his season high in 11 whiffs on the year. Also had 5 strikes looking, 74 pitches for him in that one. He might be the Rangers' option for the starting pitcher in one of those doubleheader games. And I talked about there being 13 pitchers that I'd feel okay starting a game for the Rangers this year. The other one is Jose Urena, and the Rangers going with a bit of a bullpen game and using the guy who's been their long man and who has been very solid for the Rangers this year as a kind of spot starter. He's gone 9 games this year and he's thrown 20 innings, usually throwing, multiple innings when he is going out there. He's got a 3.60 ERA, and Urena has been very, very solid for this Rangers team. I think he would be really good option for the Rangers if they do need him to be a spot starter. You wouldn't have to make any roster moves. You could just call up a reliever, an extra reliever for that doubleheader, or maybe you could call up Owen White anyway and have him be a potential long man if something gets out of hand in one of those 2 games in the doubleheader. But the 13th guy, it may not be wise to even include him, is Johnny Cueto, who the Rangers signed to a minor league deal a few weeks back. He has not yet pitched in any games so far. I have heard no updates on his status. He has not pitched for Round Rock. He hasn't pitched for Frisco. He hasn't pitched for anybody yet this year. So maybe it's tentative at best to include him on this list. But, it just goes to show you can literally never have enough starting pitchers. There is no limit that exists of, okay, this is too many starting pitchers. No, because all of their health is a question mark. No matter how old or how young they are, how many innings they've pitched, or how few innings they've pitched, there is always just one bad pitch, one bad plant on a delivery away from an injury. And so you got to have as many of those guys as possible, which is why every single, bad turn on these Rangers rehab outings, it's really thankful. Knock on all the wood that there is, that there have been no setbacks with Mahle or DeGrom in their injury recovery yet. It's still early stages, so we could still see them not come back when they're expected to, like Mahle in July or DeGrom in August. But that Cody Bradford injury turning into something worse than initially expected, that's a big deal for the Rangers. But what's also equally a big deal is how good this bullpen has been. Because it is so fresh, because there are so many guys you can go multiple innings with, whether it's Jose Leclerc, whether it's Cole Winn, who maybe he's going to start a bullpen game for the Rangers in this week. I don't know. That may be just wild speculation here. But Robertson being able to go an inning and a third to 2/3 to 2 innings at times. Yates being able to go an inning plus at times, and all those guys being fresh as well. The Rangers might just go with a bullpen game, and because the bullpen's been so darn good, heck, Jonathan Hernandez just had his second outing of the year, still hasn't allowed a single earned run or just any run at all. So that's nice to have him sitting there as probably the last option in the Rangers pen, and he was able to close out a 6-0 game without any drama whatsoever in that series finale against the Nationals. So maybe the Rangers just go with a bullpen game, which the Rangers willingly going with a bullpen game last year would have been the equivalent to just forfeiting the game from the start. But this year it might be an actual viable good option. This bullpen has been stellar. I mean, Kirby Yates still hasn't allowed an earned run. David Robertson's ERA is down all the way to 1.08. Jacob Latz's ERA is below 3. Leclerc has had 6 straight scoreless outings. Cole Winn hasn't even allowed a hit in 7 innings pitched at the big league level. Jonathan Hernandez still has a 0 ERA. I mean, it might be the smartest option for this Rangers team to just go with the bullpen day and hope you can get this kind of length out of your starting pitchers that you've gotten this week, outside of the Nate Eovaldi leaving early due to injury start. Hopefully you can get some more 6, 7, maybe even 8 inning outings from your starters. But if not, this bullpen is built to last. They have got a lot of good options there, and you're just really hoping on all kinds of good news for Nate Eovaldi's injury. But even if they don't get it, I'm excited to see what Jack Leiter can do in his second big league start, because I don't know about you, but I think it's going to be a whole lot better than the first one. That's going to do it for today's show, this week's shows. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.